everyone. My name's Kendra Olsen, and I am an 8th and ninth grade English teacher in California. And like many of you, when AI was introduced, I was terrified. I thought it was here for my job and that kids would never need to learn how to write essays and, what was I going to do? And I quickly learned that, as many of you know and realize, right, AI is not going anywhere. So I needed to take the time and learn how to use it myself and play around and engage so that I could have those important, meaningful conversations with my students about what AI is, what it's not, what it's good for, right? There's really wonderful things it can do, but also, where are we using it? And then, what are some of the downsides? And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I've taken the time to explore AI as an educator. So AI can help my students, of course, but it can also really help me. So I'm going to be sharing a tool today called Brisk for Teaching, and it's a Google Chrome extension. It's super easy to use, and it's really allowed me to become a more efficient and effective grader, and allows me to provide feedback for my students that I otherwise wouldn't be able to have the time to when I'm grading an entire, set of 5 classes of literary analysis essays. So we're going to get into that, and here we go. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you and show you a sample essay that one of my students wrote recently. It's not a sample, it's actually their essay. And we're going to kind of look at the Brisk features. So here we have the paper. My students were reading the book Night by Elie Wiesel, and they wrote a 4-paragraph lit analysis essay on a variety of different themes. I gave them some options, or they could choose their own prompt. Whenever I'm grading essays, and my students do type in Google Docs, and for this essay, it was an in-class essay. So they did a lot of preparation ahead of time. They were actually allowed to have their thesis statements as well as their quotes on the template document that they came into class and wrote the essay on. And this is really just to save time for them, so they weren't having to, type the quotes from the book. They were given 2 class periods to write this 4-paragraph essay with this kind of outline structure. Now, how Brisk comes into it and how AI has come into it and how AI has allowed me to feel so much more comfortable using it and seeing the benefits and then making me feel comfortable about, talking with my students about it is by just playing around. And that's exactly how I learned to do this. So you'll notice I have 2 widgets here that I use quite often, Grammarly, and then the Brisk one here. So we're going to go ahead and click on it. And the first thing we're going to look at today, you can see there's tons of different options here for teachers, is we're going to look at the give feedback button. Okay. Now I'm going to go through this essay and correct and give inline comments for things that, like, for example, this right here needs to be double spaced. It's not underlined, all those things. I will provide all those kind of corrections. I do give my students the opportunity to earn points back if they go through and fix their essay. But I don't have time to write that meaningful feedback that asks good questions and is providing them for food for thought, right? Because I'm really just correcting mistakes. So this allows me to do that. And today I'm going to show you 2 different options. So first, we're going to start with the Glow and Grow feature, which is a free feature. And then I'm going to go into the targeted, which is if you have Educator Pro. So for the Glow and Grow, you go ahead and click on it. And now in here, you have the ability to write any kind of prompting you want the AI to use when it's providing feedback for your students. I've also attached a 4-paragraph essay rubric that I use with all of my students that kind of outlines what I'm looking for. And so when it gives the feedback, it's going to focus on that rubric and the criteria to engage them and kind of direct them towards how they can improve their writing and also give them positive feedback. I feel like so often we're focused on how they can improve what they did wrong, but it's so important for them to hear that they're doing a good job. So we'll click on this, and then we have our little brisket button. And so it takes a second and it kind of goes through and it starts writing it out for you. And you're going to see that it provides 3 different types of feedback. Glow, so what have you done well? Grow, right? Here's some areas that we can improve on. And then also wonderings, which I love because it asks questions. And it's so important for students to stop and think and ask questions and engage in a way with their writing that often they don't take the time to do either. So First steps, I would kind of go through this and read it and make sure that I liked all of the feedback. Maybe I disagree with it, right? And I think, oh no, actually they did a good job on this. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to insert it so you can see it. So you can copy it all, or you can just insert it and it will plop it in at the top of their essay. Now, it's underlining it all because my students part was underlined. We're just going to go ahead and remove that. So you can put it here. I actually like to move it to the bottom of the paper because I want my students to kind of look over it before they just read the feedback. So I'm going to move it to the bottom so that when they get through with reading all the feedback that I've provided, they have this more in-depth feedback that they can work through. Now, in order to make sure that they're actually reading it, I'm going to have my students engage in responding to some of these questions or commenting how they would actually go in and make these changes. So it does give really, it gives suggestions, right? Maybe some misspellings or some things that there needs to be more transitions, right? All of that is very fitting. And then it gives us these questions we talked about, right? Could you include a more specific thesis that outlines your key points about dehumanization? Great question. We would look at it. Maybe the student could do that. Are there other examples from the text you could incorporate to strengthen your argument? Great. And again, I might say like, no, I think they did a pretty good job with the quotes they selected, and I can just go in and delete that, right? It's totally editable for you. So this is kind of a more one-stop shop option where you can kind of just pop it in there. And then the other option that I've recently started using because I wanted to play around with it, which is kind of my whole thing about AI is just playing around with it, is I got an Educator Pro account. Again, you'll see that it has it here, what I want them, types of feedback I want it to provide, and I'm going to click Brisket. Now, this process takes a little bit longer because it's actually going through and kind of reading the student's text and providing very specific criteria and comments that match, the criteria on my rubric. So you'll notice, well, that's funny, it's giving itself feedback. I wonder what that will look like. We'll go ahead and, oh, there we go. We'll cancel that one. So let's go up to the top here. So you'll notice, right? So it has some mechanics. That's one of the subcategories on my rubric. Is mechanics. So there are some grammatical errors in the sentences. Review your verb tense. Great suggestion. If I like that, I would just press comment. If I wanted to edit it, let's go down here, right? I could go through and say, oh, I disagree with that. I'm actually going to delete some of it or keep some of it. You can totally change it. But I would never be able to write this much feedback on every section of the essay. So they're getting more feedback. And especially if you take the time to just kind of quickly look like, oh yeah, that looks pretty good, right? You can do your comment, move on to the next section, right? Here's another comment on analysis, okay? So on and so forth. It'll come down to the conclusion. It has some feedback on quotes. And so you can kind of select and delete whatever you see fit, okay? So we'll comment on that one. So there's one more tool I want to show you about Brisk, and this is something I'm grappling with as a teacher, and is this AI plagiarism, AI checkers. And so what I found is that for me, what is most helpful is actually inspecting. So you may have used Draftback before. It's a feature in Google Docs that allows you to kind of see the keystrokes, and which is really helpful, especially when you feel like, hey, this doesn't really look like they're writing. I need to kind of see what's going on. Now, in Brisk, it takes it one step further, which I really love. And if we click on this inspect writing, it will kind of show you all of the student, just like Draftback, it shows you all of the students' keystrokes. So you'll see here, this is kind of the template information that I had provided them. And the student will start kind of filling it out, right? They're working on this at home in class until the day of. Now, what I want to draw your attention to is not so much that part, is the sections here where we have this little Padlet, this little notebook thing. So it says 5 large copy and paste, 2 large copy and paste. Okay, so that's when I'm going, uh-oh, what's going on? Now, I let my students come with information on this document. So I'm expecting that they are going to copy and paste their quotes into the right location, right? saves them time. So I can look at these pretty quickly and it will take me exactly to that spot in the essay. And I'm like, yeah, that's her quote. That makes total sense why there's a copy and paste there. Oh, there's another quote, right? So that allows me to see that the student is not copying and pasting information from the internet directly into their essay, that they're just moving their quotes around, which is exactly like I expected. The other thing is if you're like me and you're doing kind of an in-class style where they're expected to only work on this assignment between, 9 a.m. and 9:50, which is their class period, I can see when they access the document, what times, right? So if all of a sudden I'm seeing they're working on it at, 6 o'clock at night, well, that's a problem because they're only allowed to work on it during class time. So all of this just gives me information, right? As a teacher, all I want is information so that I can approach a student and say, hey, I noticed some interesting things on your essay. Can you tell me what happened? Or let's look at this together, right? And they can see and go, oh, that's what I was doing, or that was going on. My concern with, right, all the AI plagiarism checkers is that we have, as teachers, we've kind of become spies, and we feel like we're distrusting our students because these AI resources are so readily available and they don't know how to use them effectively, right? Which is our job, is to teach them that. So this allows me just to go into any conversation I have with a student where I have concerns with more information. Again, I can see how long the student worked on this assignment, 2 hours and 39 minutes. That's about right. They have 5,000 edits, right? So they really spent a lot of time on this. Okay. Now, I know I just said that maybe, we want to kind of move away from the plagiarism checkers. I just want to point this out because it is a helpful feature if you are suspecting AI plagiarism. That's not allowed, right? Sometimes many teachers are allowing students to use AI to engage in the writing. With my 8th graders, I do not. I want them to learn the critical thinking part and learn the skills of how to write an essay before they go and use AI to generate that information. But there are great ways that you can engage with AI in prepping for writing, which in another video, I'm happy to show you. There's this little button up here, and it's exactly it's a little AI plagiarism checker. It'll pop up with, what do we think? Okay, so AI writing possible. So what's interesting is when I initially did this, it was down in this yellow. But because I have since used AI on this assignment, right, my glow and grow and my comments, the needle has moved a little bit. So as far as I've seen, pretty accurate, but like I said, none of these things are 100%. So you just want to be careful and not making accusations of your students, and just use it as information. I hope that was helpful. And I just want to reiterate that AI is not going anywhere. And it's our job as teachers to have important conversations with our students. When I use this AI as feedback, my students know, they've had essays from me all year, that I don't necessarily have that much descriptive or questions. I tell them that I am using AI to provide them with more thoughtful feedback. And we have a conversation about that and why I'm doing that and what do they think about it. And it's been really helpful for me to see my students react to my using AI, because they kind of think of it as just something that they are kind of sneakily using. And so we want to kind of bring it out of this place of, darkness and accept that it is beneficial and helps us be better teachers. And for them, it really can help them be better writers when they're ready and have been trained, right, on how to do that. So start small. I know that it can feel very overwhelming. There's so many tools, which is wonderful, but as teachers, we have really busy schedules. And so I picked one thing that felt easy and manageable. And each time I collect a new assignment, I try a little bit more, which has allowed me to feel more comfortable with then allowing my students to do the same thing, right? AI literacy is about having those important conversations and everyone feeling like they know what the expectations are. So I would never want to return student work without telling them, here's the feedback I gave you, and here's the feedback that AI gave you. And then we can have a conversation about how valuable that they thought those two things were. If you found this video helpful, please share it and subscribe, and we'll have more educational videos on AI and AI literacy. Thanks.